Are you set?
Yes, I said it nice.
Hello?
Yes, working.
Yes. Are you set?
Yes, we are set.
Sir? Good afternoon, my colleagues, Mr. Kurang, Dr. John, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and the press. The object of this press conference is for the Secretary General of the party to give an update on the second electoral cycle and also our findings, both the presidential and the parliamentary elections. Like I have said, the theme of the conference is the elections. And when you come to ask questions, your questions should be based strictly on the elections and related matters to elections. If you ask any question outside that, I will not accept it. No, it's strictly the theme of the conference is elections. And questions should be based on the elections and matters related to elections. Any question outside that realm will be dismissed by me. I tell you before we start. So I'm now giving the floor to the Secretary General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope the journalists will stick to what you have prescribed. That's not usually the case, but I'll see how you will handle them. That's entirely your province. The Secretary General is mandated to address all questions, but as the Chair has said, indeed, this is dealing with the second cycle, second phase of our electoral cycle. The first phase was the presidential elections. The second phase is the National Assembly elections. The third phase, the council elections. We have met at the bureau level, consulted at the central committee level, consulted with our partners in the exercise as we moved towards the presidential elections. We had Youth for Change and APP. They are still with us. In fact, progress has been made in one area towards more amalgamation. We are here to deal with facts and figures and how to interpret them. We've consulted with the 18 candidates, 19 initially, one step down, out of principle of building our coalition. And we have consulted with the 18 candidates who spoke their mind regarding the challenges and the advantages in participating in the National Assembly elections. Our Constitution, under Section 88, which, because of the amendment of 2015, provides for 53 elected members of the National Assembly. We filed 18 candidates. That is, of course, short of a majority in the National Assembly. But the findings reveal that, in fact, Today, the majority party has only 18 seats. So it means that if we had won all the 18 seats, probably there would have been subtraction from the current majority, and most likely would have been the majority in the National Assembly. So essentially, it is important to be strategic in filing candidates. It does not mean that in National Assembly elections, you will find candidates in all constituencies. But tactically and strategically, you may be able to file lesser candidates and still have greater impact in the decision-making process in the National Assembly. That is one lesson we have drawn. Number two, we have seen the results of the presidential election. And we have compared it to the results of the National Assembly election. And we would want to inform you that from our review, we have gathered that the results, those reveal tremendous change in the mindset of the Gambian people. Change that is not easily predictable. And therefore, all parties must go back to the drawing board in preparing for the future of this country, as far as electoral matters are concerned. DOI filed 18 candidates, and in the popular vote has 24,683. We had over 34,000 in the presidential election. So this is just 18 seats. But we managed to have 24,000 in the popular vote. So in a way, those people who voted for us in the presidential election may have changed their mind in the National Assembly, but that has not significantly affected the popular vote that DOI has received. So to us, out of 18 constituencies, we have 24,683 people who are ready for one form of democracy that we will describe based on our own analysis. We, out of the 18 seats, won 2. The NPP filed 40 candidates and had 18 seats with a popular vote of 143,826. I think all of you know what the NPP had in the presidential elections. So essentially, that is not being in control of the voter in this instance. Something had changed, and that change must be understood to mean something as we move towards the future in our political participation. The UDP filed 46 candidates, more than even the NPP, and had 15 seats with 138,176 in the popular vote. All of you know what UDP had in the presidential elections. So here again, we are seeing that the voter is not static in thinking. The voter can be very flexible in the way they vote, and therefore all parties need to go back to the drawing board. The GDC filed 27 candidates, has no seat in the National Assembly, but had 33,882 votes as the popular vote out of the 27 seats but we know what they had in the presidential elections. The NRP filed 5 candidates and end up having 4 seats. But when we look at the popular vote, it's 14,153. So that is his constituency at the moment. So comparatively, the number of seats in the National Assembly is relatively larger than the rest, but its contribution to the popular vote is only 14,153. Looking at PPP, it filed 1 candidate, had 1,168 votes, and therefore there are no seat in the National Assembly, that it is standing at the moment. We look at CA, filed 10 candidates, had in the popular vote 8,682, and no seat in the National Assembly. NUP filed 4 candidates, had 1,257 in the popular vote, and no seat in the National Assembly. GMC filed 3 candidates, had 2,531 in the popular vote, and no seat in the National Assembly. GFA 3 candidates, had 1,151 in the popular vote, no seat in the National Assembly. APP, 1 seat, 294, no seat in the National Assembly. APRC 2 filed 2 candidates and had 2 seats with 15,000. I'm sorry, they filed 7 candidates and had 15,790 in the popular vote and 2 seats in the National Assembly. An independent filed 34 candidates with a popular vote of 107,032 with 12 seats in the National Assembly. So the lesson is clear. The independent candidates filed lesser seats than the majority and the minority in the National Assembly, but they do have 12 seats in the National Assembly and 107,000 in the popular vote. So when we looked at this, it became clear to us that the electoral dynamics of the country is very, very different from being partisan based. Political parties are changing. The candidates also are changing in nature and characteristics. Many candidates are becoming independent candidates, and many parties are actually not filing in basically the members of their parties based on their conviction on the programs of parties, but are also following the trend of finding who can win in a constituency and then select those people to be their candidates. That is becoming a trend. It's not exactly the trend, but it's becoming a trend. And in our analysis, we have seen that the Gambian electorate are more hooked to a democratic system that we call to be formal democracy. It does not matter what the delivery will be tomorrow. What matters is that the person can win elections. And therefore, what matters is do everything that is possible under the sun to ensure that elections are won. So consequently, as many people as possible are moving towards the direction of engaging people, not on the basis of programs, but on the basis of popularity in a particular constituency. So in that regard, we as DOI did interrogate what Gambia holds for you as the electorate and what Gambia holds as for those who want to be representatives of the country. As participants in the political process for 3 decades, DOI is convinced that its politics must be based on a contract with nation and people. We are convinced that we have a duty to serve our country and a duty to serve our people. And we call that substantive democracy. The democracy where people elect because they want service, and people seek office because they want to render service. We are convinced that that is what has a future. That all those who base their political existence on just formal democracy ultimately will have parties that will not be able to survive. And the trend is very clear from the results of the elections, that apart from those parties that have joined coalitions, essentially, if we take the coalition as a group, then it means that we have only 3 units in the National Assembly based on the participation of political parties: NPP, UDP, and DOI. All the other parties are either part of a coalition, NPP coalition, or they do not have a seat in the National Assembly. So in our analysis, we have come to realize that as long as the contest is based on your desire to win a seat, and the laws do not matter, we put all the electoral laws aside, and you can use any means to be able to get to power. At the end of the day, what we are going to have is precisely what we have now. Very few political parties in the National Assembly, and very few consolidating their power base based on patronage. We've asked ourselves the fundamental question: is that the type of electoral system we want? If that is the case, then we as DOI must join the bandwagon. Unlike the Le Pens of France, who could go to Russia and borrow $10 million to support and sponsor her party, to be able to win as many people as possible, DOI will also have to talk about changing the constitution, which restricts getting support from corporate bodies, and tell them that is unfair. Let's open everything and get money wherever you can, and give people their cooking utensils, give them their boreholes, give them their milling machines, give them their bag of rice, $3,000, whatever you can, give it to them. and drag them to support your candidate. All DOI members are challenged to ask themselves that fundamental question, whether that is the type of political system they want. And by extension, the DOI members are asking the Gambian people to ask themselves the question whether that is the type of political system they want. And if there has to be fairness, then let's open it up then, if that is the system we want. And not to create laws that restrict those of the law-abiding and leave those who hate to follow laws to do as they wish. And we only condemn and expose without having any impact in changing the destiny of our motherland. We agreed that we must look at this very seriously as a party, and we must challenge the Gambian population on this matter. And before another election, we must resolve the issue. Which way will forward for Gambian democracy? Formal democracy or substantive democracy? Members said that they are tired of people saying principles of DOI should be set aside. It does not work. As if it is DOI who should respect the law and others should not. They are tired of people condemning DOI for adhering to principle and promoting others for violating those principles and revering them as being people who know what politics is and what should be done. So that is the question. Number two, our members are asked to ask themselves the question: if we do move towards formal politics and abandon the education of our people, their mobilization to understand that sovereignty resides in them, their mobilization to understand that sovereign wealth belongs to them, and it is that wealth that is given to them to eradicate their poverty, their ignorance, and injustice in our homeland. They must ask themselves the question whether we should abandon that type of politics, substantive democracy. So we agreed as DOI that DOI is at a crossroads, either to move and join the bandwagon of patronage or the bandwagon of substantive democracy. The democracy that liberates, that educates, that makes people take ownership of power and know that leaders are there to serve, or they send them packing. Not because of patronage, they send candidates packing, only to sit down and regret how did it happen. So that is what we have interrogated, and our members are challenged to be prepared for far-reaching changes in how we think and how we do things based on the commitment we make. In our review exercise, we see very clearly that the trend is not the trend that can address the needs and aspirations of our people. We are convinced that we must prepare for the next phase of the electoral cycle. the council elections. And we need the Gambian people to think with us, because program to us matter. And the program that we put before the people is very clear. We have said, since independence, power has been centralized in the councils. And all monies come from villages to be centralized in councils, in the area councils or municipal councils. And the villages continue to be poor, wards continue to be poor, and we do not think that is the system that can eradicate poverty of our people at the local level. We are convinced that if we allow the villages to control what comes from there in their treasuries and use it for development, you will have some amount of development on an annual basis. If we leave the same thing towards, you'll have some amount of development on an annual basis. And in terms of our sovereign national wealth, at the central government, at the consolidated fund, at the level of the consolidated fund, let's see how we can share that among the various regions of the country so that they drip down to the division, to the regions, and to the wards, and to the villages. We are convinced that that system of distribution of wealth will actually lead to balanced and proportionate development of the country. Sort of prevent urban-rural drift and ensure common ownership of the country by all, because all will be benefiting from service, and therefore all will see the need to have representatives who serve them. That is what we are calling for. It is not the law at the moment. It's not the practice at the moment. But we are debating among ourselves whether DOI and its partners will not promote that agenda for the third phase and seek the mandate of the people and see whether the people will give the mandate to that group of people, so that development will start at the grassroots and the people will know what can be done at the national level by practice, not just by theory. That is the agenda that we have. But we must consult the people to know whether that's the agenda they want. And if that's the agenda they want, then why not put your money and mouth where that agenda is? Why do we continue to say, do I see the Ajata and Halifa Saleh when 18 candidates too? Why talk about youth when only Syria was above 60? All the rest are under 60 years. And I'm sure Kura will say most of them are under 40 years. Those are the voices of DOI. They should have been in the National Assembly speaking for DOI and speaking for the nation. Why would you put the voice of DOI to be deposited in the hearts of two people when you know that is farce? You know the reality. You've seen the candidates. You know that they're not getting older, they're getting younger. But do you want to take ownership of your society? Do you want to sacrifice? Do you want to sacrifice more than Halifa Saleh, more than Syria Jata? Who will prevent you from doing that? Come and take DOI and take it where it should go. But don't take it to the dustbin of patronage. Take it to the mountain of substantive democracy, so that the whole world will see us and the flag will be there fluttering. And they say Gambia is the example. If this small country can do it, which other country on earth will be unable to do it? That is the legacy we want to leave behind. But we cannot be here all the time. We will leave you, even before we die, very soon. But our voices will not be silenced. Just depart from our legacy. We'll be after you day and night and show how rotten you are, how you have destroyed a legacy that is not intended only to save Gambia, but to save humanity. That's what you have. And in our discussion, that's how we finalize our debate. That now is a challenge to all DOI members and to the Gambian people at large. We must decide. We cannot be on the fence. We must either be on the side of substantive democracy or formal democracy. Open it up and everybody will go wherever you find wealth, whether you're going to have it from people who want to buy your country because they are billionaires and are ready to buy people so that they buy governments and buy the projects and enrich themselves at the expense of your nation, or people who are convinced that they want to help a people. They want to give solidarity to a people. They'll put their money where they want people to go and educate and liberate. People who are ready day and night to put their back against everything that is rotten and move towards what is decent, what helps society to move forward. The conclusion. We've heard President Barrow's address, but there is only one shortcoming in the address, and it's the shortcoming of most African leaders. When they talk, they said, well, now we put the election behind us. Let's all now come together, put politics aside, and let's build the country. It's like opposition is no longer relevant. Let's all be one and build the country. Well, we want to share with him what an opposition is in a country, so that that thinking can be put aside. When a government is elected, the person occupies a national post belonging to all. That person should be respected and should be allowed to govern on the basis of the constitution of that land and the law of that land. And nothing should be done to interrupt that legitimate process. But that government must also recognize the right of the opposition to hold it into account, so that wherever it departs from constitutionality, from good governance, that particular group of people will point their accusing fingers and say, that is not the way. Change. If you don't change, we'll replace you. Or we can't replace you if the people so desire. So the role is dual. Both government and opposition must be active. Just like the president goes on tour to find out how the policies are being implemented, the opposition must also go on tour to find out how the policies are being implemented. It's not a monopoly of the person who is governing. It's a person who, it's a duty of everybody who wants a better society. So, what we anticipate is a DOI that will assume its role with its partners of holding government into account, examining policies, sending people to the people, so that in these 5 years, Gambia will have a very vibrant, participatory democracy, where even if we do not tilt in the right direction in terms of law and policy, there will be an alternative so visible that people will be able to effect the change that is necessary. That is, my colleagues, what you've assigned me to put to them, and I hope I have done due service to the mandate you've given me. That is the message that God has for you. And we hope that the questions you will ask will enable us to further elucidate, elaborate on any matter that is left hanging. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the floor is open to the press. If you want to ask a question, indicate your name and the media house you represent. Anybody? Any questioner? Wow, that would be a perfect press conference.
I have one.
Well, here is a microphone.
Yeah, I guess you can hear me here.
There we can.
So good afternoon, I am Bana Sabali. I work for West Coast Radio. So Mr. Mamadi Kura, you are the leader of the Gambia, the Youth for Change, and then you stood as a candidate during the parliamentary election, but you couldn't win. So as a youth, and then your fellow colleagues and yourself were not chosen as young people, what would you have to tell us about your participation as a young person and couldn't win?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. I think the Honorable, His Excellency Salah has set the stage, the foundation for the argument that you are asking about. We've put ourselves forward and we gave our programs to the electorate. And as you know, it's a democracy. I believe it is the electorate, the voters that have the final say. But we know democracy, like the Honorable is just saying, democracy is an investment, and for every investment, it should have a dividend. So we usually say that where is the democratic dividend? And in this case, in the case of the Gambia, of course, we know what has happened and transpired during the election. You journalists were on the ground, and we were all on the ground. So the argument of the Honorable here just now, a formal democracy, democracy in form, or democracy in substance. Obviously, what we have seen on the ground, right, we have seen the ruling party and others maybe who adopt the same style of politics, are not so much interested in democracy in substance. The interest is basically democracy in form. What I'm saying is that obviously, yeah, if we lost the election, we accepted in good faith that we have lost the election. We are Democrats. However, that cannot stop us from highlighting to the people some of the practices which would not lead us to democracy in substance, but would essentially leave us just democracy in form. Most people ask me, even during the campaign, what is the cause of inflation? Why are prices in the Gambia just going up? I say, well, it seems like that's what we voted for. Because, when we say inflation, economists will say, simple, too much money chasing few goods, isn't it? Now, how do you explain that when you have a democracy and you have people who call themselves Democrats, we work for this democracy. We all work to make sure that the dictatorship goes away. Credit to the two honorables sitting here with me, and every Gambian would testify to that, that there has been a lot of sacrifice to see that a dictatorship gives way to a democracy. So we expected a dividend to come. All right? That we owe to the Gambian people. We don't owe that to Adama Barrow or any specific individual. The people who voted to change the system is the people we owe it to. They expected dividend. But when we voted and then people are in power and they feel that to remain in power, they have to go around at night giving envelopes to people. They have to go, and as you said, the politics of inducement. The politics of inducement in the Gambia has just multiplied over ages. What we see now is, in my constituency in Nyamina, we know, I contested there, well, fairly. We think we put up a good fight. We never engaged in inducement, and I believe that most of the people who participated in DOI and witnessed to it did not participate in the politics of inducement. And therefore, the votes that we get, we feel that we get those votes because people really believe in the principles and the policies that we sell. And we think there is a future to that. But we don't think there is a future to politics of inducement, politics of form, because simply inflation is here, like I said. If you give cash to people in an economy, a government is supposed to increase or encourage economic growth by investing in things that will create jobs. But if you take the money and give it to Tom, you take money and give it to Babukar, the Johe Halis, right? Now what are going to happen is you have too much money now in circulation in the country, not money that was given for productive purposes, but money that was given to people simply because to get their votes. Where is that money going to go? That money is going to go back to the market to chase the goods again. So you have already made what is called ready-made inflation. So who is responsible for the inflation now when the voters ask you? So I would say that we have tried to do our best and engage in policies and politics of policies to sell to the people what we think is good for the country. And we believe that we want to continue to do that. And we know that it will take time, but eventually Gambians are coming to realize that there is a new Gambia, and that new Gambia is actually possible. Because when a president goes and then do that, or other people go and do that type of politics, and now they form a cabinet, and then you see a cabinet where you find sometimes square pegs in round holes. That is about what? That is a cabinet that is intended maybe to win the next election, but not necessarily to bring inflation down. Thank you.
Ali.
Yes. Yeah, Alice. My name is Alice from Ghana.
Okay.
So based on your findings, how will you conclude, how will you describe the past National Assembly election and the presidential election?
Well,
How would you
describe it as whether it's fair. How do we describe it?
Yeah.
Well, we analyze and we leave you to do the assessment. We are saying, from the angle of formal democracy, people went to the polls, they campaigned. Those who wish to buy will buy, those who wish to induce will induce, those who wish to use ethno-linguistic religious allegiance will do so. Everything in the book we will do just to win. So we say from the angle of formal democracy, there were no troubles. We did not fight anybody. We went to campaign peacefully. We voted peacefully, and the votes were counted peacefully, and results declared peacefully. So what do we say? From a formal angle, we'll say, well, we had elections that our candidates would accept. None of our candidates would say we would not accept the results of the elections. But they would say, looking at it from a substantive democracy, we have a way to go. And I believe our assessment is very clear to all Gambians. But then we cannot continue to come annually to just make such assessments and leave everything to go. That's why we are putting the question before all Gambians. Do you want all parties to engage in politics of patronage? Then don't have a constitution that limits corporate contribution to party finances. Leave everything open so that all parties will now go anywhere they can, even sell themselves and make billions and come and contest elections. Then you have a level ground for multi-party contest. We don't think that should be the future of the country. That's our assessment. We believe that the assessment should be to move towards substantive democracy where parties will put their program before the people. Nobody will induce, nobody will intimidate. The people will be free. The laws will operate because all those are illegal. To give any butut to anybody for voting is illegal. It's in your Elections Act. But civil society, yes, they can educate people what is there. That's not enough. There must be commitment to it. And there must be sanctions when you violate them. So that's why we're saying the debate starts now. And our assessment is that we will not go to another election without coming to conclusion on that. Either it becomes politics of patronage or substantive politics, substantive democracy. That is our conclusion. I hope you've heard our assessment loud and clear and our conclusion loud and clear.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Chair?
What's your question?
Hi. So my question to that is, as young Gambians, right, and people that care about this country's future and this country's democracy, we've all seen what has happened in the presidential elections, and we've all seen what has happened in the parliamentary elections. And it's unfair for a certain group of society to say that we will not practice that kind of politics when there's no recourse, because with what we have seen, is it something that we can challenge in courts? Is it something that we can take, even if the Gambian courts are not willing to listen to it, like the regional recs, for instance, with ECOWAS, with the African Union? So is there anybody where we can fight for what we've seen? Because I think this is a problem that will continue as long as nothing is done about it. I'm not in parliament, and quite honestly, I don't really know what if there are solutions or things that we can do. I'm sure that not only myself, but there's a lot of young Gambians in this room that will be ready to champion that along with myself. So that's, I guess, the follow-up question that I have.
The issue is twofold. One, what do you do within the system to challenge what is wrong? And what one does within the system is go to court, gather evidence and go to court and try to find evidence that would be accepted by the courts and therefore fight all those injustices. It's an angle that one can take. The other angle is real political commitment by a whole society, meaning that the issue must be taken to the people for them to understand what formal democracy is and what substantive democracy is. It becomes a national campaign of explanation to the Gambian people and eventually taking a stand, a national stand, that the laws of the country must be respected and see to it that it is respected. Having an IEC that is galvanized, empowered to be able to make decisions. Political parties that are convinced and committed to the principles, and civil society that is committed to the principles, and all of them work together to ensure that this is the type of system that must prevail here and no other will prevail. For PDOIS is saying that that is the way forward. And let us all analyze the system that we have. And those who have been saying, well, if you cannot beat them, join them, to abandon a program that only helps ruling parties, because they will always have more money than you, and therefore will be able to consolidate more than you. So what is important is to put an end to that trend. And we are capable of doing so if we all act together to save our country. That's what we are recommending. Let's all be ready to act together to put an end to that type of politics so that it does not become a feature of our electoral process anymore.
Yes, my name is Landis Ise from Kefa. I have two questions, one for Celia and one for Honorable Alika. The other one is, are you insinuating that Gambians are practicing formal democracy, not substantive democracy? That's question number one. And question number two is, Honorable Jara, Barrow said, he will send you to retirement, and then all of a sudden you lost the election. What is your reaction to this?
Yes, I'll answer both. The first one is clear. Whether we say yes, there is formal democracy or not, we know that that is the type of system that we have. Every Gambian knows that. There are certain things that we do not need to answer because we all know that patronage is the political system that we have. And we cannot attribute it to one government. It has always been. But it does not bar individuals here and there from winning elections. And it does not bar coalitions here and there to change the destiny of nations when the time and circumstances make that to be possible. So we have seen all forms of changes already. So we are not saying because you have patronage, then people cannot win elections. We can't win elections. Serekunda won, Wuli is won. So you can't win elections. But we are saying that is not the type of system for the future, because it does not help you to elect the best people who can serve the nation. Sometimes I'll put up a candidate just so that the candidate can win because the candidate is popular there. But when the person in his National Assembly, the person may not be able to deliver. That's what they are saying. So if we create a system where we look for the most competent to be selected, and the people will be able to have the chance to check who is the most competent to serve them, that is going to deliver the type of society we want. But we cannot continue to complain, Gambia has this problem, that problem, when we are not doing the right thing to address those problems. That's what we are saying. I hope you understand that we are not using it as an excuse for not winning elections. We are using it so that you understand that if the future of the country is to be guaranteed, we must move more and more towards substantive democracy. In terms of what President Barrow had said, he has already been replied that really he, as a presidential candidate, should not have even gone on tour. Because the National Assembly, under Section 112, is looking for Gambian citizens who are guided by conscience and national interest in the National Assembly, not partisan interest. So essentially, it's not a partisan campaign. It is really looking for, and political parties are parties. The reason why they are parties, and the reason why they carry out the function, their function is to select among them who can be given to the nation. That's what the selection process is all about. That the parties are selecting among them who we can give to the nation to serve the nation. And rightly you can see with PDOIS, we don't have a hierarchy that determines a selection process for candidates. The people in the constituency themselves select their candidates. If there are many, they'll hold a primary. So, because they know the people who are there and know who can best serve them. So therefore, that is, we see that as being the trajectory that the president should have taken, knowing that it is not his responsibility to retire anybody. He should not utter such statements because the reply will not be very tasteful for him. And I think you've had the reply to him. So I don't think we can prolong that engagement anymore. He knows that it is something said that should not happen.
Yes, I had the reply before, and that was before the election. But now I want the reaction from Honorable Senior Jada after the election.
I have said that let me reply for him, but you don't want me to reply for him. We have met, we have discussed, and I think Star FM asked me, I told you that CDA is a professional. CDA is wanted in West Africa. Just wait. All your languages in your educational institution will soon be resorting to him for consultancies. I think people just want us to make money. Because we are competent people. Just yesterday, and we say this thing, now I think we should brag, CDA. These people are not. Just some days ago, whole IMF, all their regional representatives had to select 3 experts to address them. I was among them. KMSN was there, helping me in the network. And he knew what the performance was and how they saw us. You've seen me at the ACP-EU Parliamentary Assembly. These are not ordinary bodies. So for us, it's not us. We are there almost, how many years are we gone? Continue telling us to take transport and take ministerial force. If I were to go to Barrow today and say I want a ministry, you think he's going to deprive me of a ministerial force? Maybe I don't even have to go to him. We know what happened. So essentially what we are saying is that our reaction is simple. The load is off our heads. And we are freer today with a clear conscience that we did not betray the aspirations of our people. It is people who say, go and rest. And we rest in peace with a clear conscience, knowing that we are determined to serve. It is people who say, well, it's okay, go and retire. Fine. But I know, you know, that we are not retiring from our citizenship. We are not retiring from our sovereign existence. Our voice will be heard louder and clearer than ever before.
That answers your question. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Can you stand up and then tell me who you are and who you represent?
PDOIS.
Huh? Hasn't the press?
Yes. Thank you guys very much. Uncle Khalifa, I have a question for you and Uncle Sidi as well. Obviously, we do sit in gatherings and people talk about, oh, we haven't had Khalifa say this, we haven't had Sidi say this. And both Khalifa and Sidi has lost, and Khalifa declared that he retired from representation. We all know that you are voices of conscience. And Gambia is so desperate right now in need of people like you. Yes, we have fellows like Dr. Jan here, Alhaji Mamadi Kuran that join us. But obviously, you've earned our trust as Gambians. And Gambians rely on you for authentic and knowledgeable information. But obviously, people are waiting to hear you all the time. People are more in need for your knowledge and for your conscience. Are you guys still going to be out there all the time? We've seen recently, obviously, other activists, I don't want to name names, obviously, making comments about certain things that the president is doing. But we know who you guys are, what you've done for this country. I mean, I don't like bragging about DOI. Like you said earlier, we don't have to brag about Syria. But people feel that that's what Gambians want. Gambians want for you to be bragged about. You know, we want you guys to be out there telling people endlessly what to do, or how to do things, or how to right the wrongs. And are you guys going to be out there like you were doing when you were officially the party leader, and obviously when Cedia was running his constituency. That's the question I'm asking for.
Well, I believe we have answered the question. We have said that our duty is to help in the process of creating the transformed Gambian who can bring about the transformation of the Gambia. That is a duty, and after this press conference, there will be a meeting to be able to map out the way forward. And it will be shared. As you said, you did not only announce yourself as a press personality, but also as a DOI-leaning press personality. Well, I am sure that by next week, it will be on your table, ideas that shows the way forward. And without doubt, we are going to make maximum use of our esteemed personalities, regardless of what role they will be playing in the political space or even national space, national sphere. We'll be using all of them, tapping their resources as eminent persons, and that's what Africa should in fact be doing, tapping the knowledge of eminent persons and not restrict governance to presidents and ministers. It's larger than that. We need to create a crop of people, thinkers, who will continue entice the population so that they begin to this new journey of thinking about our future and doing something about it. We will certainly be there. We will certainly be there.
Thank you for always answering all the questions. Any more questions? No more questions? Are you okay? The press, don't go out and say, I had this to ask, but you are free to ask questions within the frame of what I have described. Yes.
Yes. My name is Matar from the partner both from the PDOIS media. Thank you very much. I have a little bit clarification that I need you to clarify for me about the $669 million. We know that you are part of that community, about this $69 million. Then can you enhance people about the financial of that money, how that money comes from, and how the money transaction was when they already deliver the audit report that you propose?
He said you violate your rule.
Well, this is out of the press conference, and I said that I will not answer, I will not allow any question which goes beyond the press conference. And I think I will stick to that. Because there are a lot of things that have been said about $669 million, and I don't want to go into them here because this press conference is very limited. So you can ask me in another situation, but not today. Yes? Any more questions? Maybe there will be a need for that, to have a particular session on that, the audit report itself. Okay. Because they are just talking about just a fragment of the audit report. That's what surprises me. That's not the only thing that is in the audit report. There are evil things, they are even more evil than that. So that's why I don't even want to talk about it. Because it's like you take one little thing out of the whole audit report and make it as if it is the most important. It is one of the important things there, but there are many more things there, more serious. And what about the COVID report, the audit report on the COVID response? Yes.
I think it's still part of the issue of elections, because you are a representative of the people.
No, it is not. The audit report is not part of the elections, please.
That's my assembly.
No, but I'm not in the National Assembly here. The audit report is specific about government accounts. And this press conference is not about government account, it's about elections.
No, the issue is there were allegations that Honorable Salah was the one who had that committee. And then
That's PEC.
yes, no, what they were saying, like, people understand these two committees.
You know what you people should avoid is exactly what he is saying. What is important is we can convene a press conference. When you hear those things, you can come and engage Halifa Sallah on a particular issue to get clarification. You don't wait until we and our colleagues hold our press conference on the National Assembly election and you want us to touch on all sorts of issues. That's not relevant, it's not significant. And you should be properly guided, that many people are not properly guided. The situation of government finance is very clear. Section 150 of the Constitution says that all monies of the government must be paid to a consolidated fund. Section 151, not a butut should be withdrawn from that fund unless it comes from an appropriation act. And the Auditor General is given power under Section 160 to audit all government accounts. The Accountant General is given power under the Public Service Act, Public Finance Act under Section 6, that if he comes across any fraud of any sort, immediately he should inform the Permanent Secretary and the Auditor General. You have seen under Section 160 of the Constitution that the Auditor General has powers that the National Assembly does not have. That is, if he discovers any fraud, immediately, he does not have to wait for a review of the National. Immediately, he should inform the Inspector General of Police. So what problem do you have with fraud? Any fraud that is mentioned, it should have been sent to the Inspector General by now. He should have done everything that needed to be done. It should have been in the courts. Why talk about National Assembly? I hope that is clear. So these issues are a matter, yes, for the National Assembly to know everything that is happening, and I'm sure the National Assembly has prepared its report, and those reports, because of the busyness of the cycle of the National Assembly, may not have been late, but ultimately all that will become public, so it will become public, what the National Assembly does. But the Constitution authorizes the Auditor General so that there will be no delay to publish every report that he has for public knowledge. I hope that clarifies all the issue. Whether somebody has said something, you come to me and interview me on that specific purpose. And if it is mentioning somebody else, I'll challenge that person to a debate, and the person will sit down and tell you, and I'll address you, so that at least we know who is saying what is what, So we are ready for debate, we are ready for issues, but we are not ready for pettiness, please.
So in the absence of any other question, I will still come back to Syria. Yes. The issue is, I know PDOIS is a very organized political party. You guys must have discussed before coming to face the media with regards to the theme of the press conference. Yes. But, the comment of the president during that campaign was made in your constituency. And then it was during the campaign. He said that statement, against you. So I would personally want your response directly to me in regards to that. Yes.
I'm satisfied with the answers and the statement Halifa made at the time he spoke in Bunju. I have nothing to add to that. Anything else is petty, and I'm not in petty politics.
Thank you. And you can see, as we have said, any issue, the press can meet, discuss about them, get back to us, and we can hold press conferences to clarify all matters. You've heard about the anti-corruption bill and all this. People just talk. And generally, they do not have a clear perspective of things. So get us involved. We are ready to be committed to some of these issues. But don't use us in any way to be engaged in petty talks, please. Well, Chair, I think now we've concluded.
Yes, I think yes. Who is asking the question from the diaspora?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay.
Yes, we'll take them.
I've got them at the top of my head. I can ask from here. But it's written on that paper. We'll see it. Can you read my poor handwriting?
Question 1, Usman. Is Sidi Data and Usman Silla going to continue again for parliamentary elections? That's question 1. Question 2, can there be any reason for Khalifa Sallah to stand again for presidential elections? When will PDOIS announce its leader? That will succeed Khalifa Sallah as Secretary General.
See, I think I can answer all 3 questions. all 3 questions are directed to me. I have said it loud and clear. I stood and the Gambian people gave me, it's 30 how much? 34,000? Where is Sam? Sam,
It's 35,000.
Well, you sure it's 35? Yeah. Should I announce 35? They say I didn't even know my result.
35,000.
Yeah, they gave me 30-something thousand.
35, let's say 30.
That's the votes I had. Everywhere I go, they say, oh, this great man, this great. So they want me to be a celebrity. They want me to take photographs with them. But they don't want me to be their president. So why should I struggle to be a president of a country? It was a duty. At the right time, times and circumstances said, it was me who the party selected to be there to stand as the presidential candidate. So I had to perform a duty. But that duty performed led to results saying, no, this is not the person who would be the president of the Republic of the Gambia. And I cannot continue waiting and waiting to be president of the Republic of the Gambia. Politics is not a career to me, it's a duty. So I can be a very good kingmaker. Just don't think that I've abandoned it. I can be a very, as they said, although we are not trying to build kings, I think I'm just using that. But yes, it's an expression. But I can be a person who will ensure that Gambia has the right president of the Republic of the Gambia at the right time. So that responsibility I have not shivered. It is a responsibility I am ready to perform, a responsibility I'm ready to do everything to see it through, or maybe I go to my grave knowing that I've been trying to see it through but did not succeed. Number 2.
Can I add something to that before you pass? You know what surprises me, you Gambians? You don't ask yourselves questions. Instead of asking me or him questions, the questions that you ask are questions that you should answer yourselves. Let me ask you a question. In the last presidential election, let us be honest to ourselves. Which candidate among all the candidates put a program before the Gambian people?
No one.
Only one person. And that was the only program that was talked about from Khartoum to Koina. Yes. Even those who could not read English, they were talking about system change. Yes. And what is more, the incumbent who stood here and told you that I know nothing, I'm counting on people, I'm on elephant's back. Now the elephant and the ant stood and you voted for the ant and left the elephant. Who is to blame? Now, then why are you asking me the question? I think the question is ridiculous.
So the situation in terms of Usman, Syria, well, know that presidential elections come before National Assembly elections. So before you talk about these people standing in National Assembly elections, I think you should also hope that at least they will take over the country and get Syria Yada to be involved in a cabinet post of some sort, to be able to change the destiny of this land, rather than thinking of standing in another National Assembly election. I don't think that is really progressive in thinking. Progressive in thinking is, how do we move for them to take charge? It's not just to be an oversight saying what is wrong and right about the country. It's to change the conditions of the people. That's what we want. Yeah. And some of us may never again get into such setups again. So the last thing in terms of leadership, well, there is a misconception about leadership. You see, when we first met to establish DOI, we made Syria to be chairperson. And at that time, we wanted the chairperson to be chairperson and party leader. When he sacrificed, he left his job, he resigned his job at the curriculum development to become part of a process that no one would be able to predict the outcome. And it was a very hostile environment because his brother was the chief in Wuli. And they felt that to be a betrayal of the family's interests to get into an opposition party at that time, especially to be able to come to a level where they will identify you among the party leadership. But we felt that by his origin, all the way in Wuli, and the poverty that we saw, sometimes the qualified teachers, or the teachers, if you want to be punished, they will send you to Wuli at that time, just because of how far the place was. So we felt that here was a passage who the Gambian population will be able to look at and say, if it is coming from the most deprived region of the country, this was the person, and he happened to be educated to the highest level, and therefore we can galvanize and give support to effect the change. And we should have announced that he is party leader. He said, no, it is sufficient just for me to be selected. And when I became Secretary General, we all accepted that party leader is a nomenclature that is alien to DOI. We have party institution holder, chair, secretary, political secretary. We have offices. And it is competent to be a leader of the party. We started to say that we have a leadership. But they never could digest this. Wherever you say DOI leadership, no, party must have leader. In fact, some of the parties started campaigning that this is a party that does not have a leader. And that language leader came from you, not from us. I don't think you've ever heard me say Halifa Sallah is the leader of DOI. So we do not have a leader. We have a leadership. We have people holding positions. Do you understand? And of course we have a constitution, and I was elected in the last Congress for a 4-year term. But I have said that I will not be able to serve that 4-year term. So we are now engaged in that process. And this is not because I can't, it's not because I don't want to, it's not because I should not, but I have another role to perform in Gambian society. I want to be fully independent to be able to do that. I'm ready to fight.
Yes.
And I cannot fight when I hold these positions, because in this position I have to be very calm, very diplomatic, to handle many things. But now I have to speak conscience.
Yes.
And because I have to speak conscience, it is good for me to be away from all these positions, so that when I speak, nobody will say I'm speaking because I'm interested in being made a president or being made a part in Nangam. They will see that it is a human being speaking, so that all of us become new Gambians who can bring about a new Gambia. I hope that is understood. So that will be done at the right time. We are working as a party. We cannot be anarchistic. We must do everything in a ruling manner so that the party grows and develops and be what it should be. But it should be very clear to all of you that for these positions are not positions of privilege. They are not positions of power. In National Assembly, you have to go to see the leader of your party to see whether you'll be selected as a National Assembly candidate. You must curry favor from somebody. That's not in DOI, because the leadership does not decide who becomes council candidate, National Assembly candidate, or presidential candidate. So there is really no power structure that we hold on to. It's just a leadership structure, giving guidance, giving ideas, ready to serve at all times, which means that 24 hours you are in the service of the party. And we hope that ultimately that is the type of leadership we'll continue to have, people who are ready to put conscience, national interest, and service in front, and ready 24 hours to be in the service of their country and people. That's what we are looking for. I hope we've answered your 3 questions. Diaspora?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if there are no more questions, we can call this press conference a day. So I thank you very much for having responded to our invitation, and we are here available. There may be another press conference, many more press conferences on fundamental issues that you are thinking about. But and you can always call for one if you want. But be sure that it's on something which is not petty politics. Because that's what is winning in this country. Petty politics is what is winning in this country, and we don't need it. So thank you very much.